In 1909, deep inside the Grand Canyon, a man claimed to find something impossible, an ancient underground city, filled with mummies, statues, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Smithsonian got involved. Then silence. Today, that part of the canyon is strictly off limits. So, was it all a hoax? Or is there something in the rocks they don't want us to find? If you believe some truths are buried on purpose, hit like and subscribe, because this one goes deeper than anyone imagined. In the final days before the Grand Canyon became a national park, one man set out on a journey that would never make it into the official maps. G. Kincaid wasn't a historian. He was a prospector, hoping to find gold, silver, or copper before the land was closed off forever. But what he found was older than any mineral, and far more dangerous. 40 miles upriver from El Tovar Crystal Canyon, Kincaid spotted strange stains high in the rock face, 2,000 feet up, with no visible trail. He climbed until he discovered something incredible. Sandstone steps, cut into the cliff itself, partially buried in brush and dust. They led to a man-made entrance, half swallowed by time. Inside, Kincaid found himself in a dark tunnel, carved straight through the rock. On the walls were symbols, not English, not Native American. They looked Egyptian, and that was only the beginning. He ventured deeper. Oval doorways opened into side chambers. Some rooms were small, others the size of banquet halls. He found pottery, storage jars still filled with seeds, copper tools, and strange metal slag. A granary, a forge, places for people to live, and for many people. He would later estimate the site could have housed 50,000. This wasn't a burial chamber. It was a city, and no one had ever spoken of it. With each step into the gloom, the impossible became undeniable. The main passage was wide and expertly cut, narrowing only as it extended deeper. Every wall bore signs of design, not randomness, but intention. Kincaid noted rooms on either side of the passage, carved with near-engineering precision. Their ceilings sloped inward to a central point, their walls vented by rounded air shafts. The doors were oval, not square, alien to anything known in native architecture. In one room, he found shells of pottery, still intact. Another held granaries, their contents sealed for centuries. But the most disturbing discovery was the metalwork, hardened copper tools, expertly forged. Even slag and materials used in smelting were present, evidence of metallurgy that shouldn't have existed here. This wasn't primitive. It was advanced. A large chamber revealed rows of benches, blackened with use. A dining hall? A council room? No one could say, but the implication was clear. This was not a tomb or a temple. It was a fully functioning settlement, engineered with purpose, inhabited for years, maybe centuries. Kincaid documented everything. But there was more. At the heart of the complex lay something sacred and deeply unsettling. As Kincaid advanced deeper into the cavern, the passageway widened and the architecture shifted. He reached a great cross hall, several hundred feet long, and there, seated in silence, was a massive stone figure. The idol was unlike anything found in the Americas. Seated cross-legged, holding a lotus in each hand, the statue bore the unmistakable features of the East. It resembled a Buddha, but not quite. The carving style was unfamiliar, the face undeniably foreign. Around this chamber, every wall was adorned with strange symbols, not just decorations, but messages, prayers, maybe warnings. Kincaid couldn't read them. Neither could the scholars who later arrived. More rooms opened up beyond this chamber. He found crypts, rows of shells carved into angled walls, each holding a mummy. All male, all carefully wrapped. Many bore copper cups and fragments of weapons. Oddly, the mummification technique, the funerary objects, and the shelf system showed an evolution, from crude to refined. The deeper the shelf, the older and rougher the burial. The higher, the more sophisticated. As if he was looking not at a moment in time, but centuries of tradition. Who were these people? Why was their god foreign? And why had their entire existence been hidden inside a canyon wall? No women, no children, just warriors and a statue that didn't belong, with his pockets full of notes and artifacts carefully wrapped. Kincaid contacted the Smithsonian. The response was swift and unexpected. A team led by Professor S.A. Jordan arrived weeks later. 40 men, scientists, researchers, and workers joined Kincaid in what he believed was the most significant archaeological discovery ever made in North America. But soon after their arrival, everything changed. No official report, no public announcement, no photographs, nothing. The Smithsonian, once so eager, fell silent. Letters were ignored. Inquiries met with denial. Eventually, even Kincaid's name seemed to vanish from their records. Years later, journalists tried to revisit the site. They found a wall of resistance and a no-go zone patrolled by federal authorities. The canyon entrance, according to locals, was sealed. The entire region was labeled protected area for wildlife, they said, for safety. But skeptics saw another reason: control. Why would one of the world's most respected institutions suppress a discovery of this scale? Was it doubt, fear, or a deliberate effort to protect a narrative? And if so, what did they find that had to be buried again? The Grand Canyon isn't just a marvel of geology. For the native tribes who still live near its edges, the Hopi, the Zuni, the Navajo, it's a sacred place, a birthplace, a portal. According to Hopi tradition, the first people emerged from beneath the Grand Canyon, led by a sky being in a moving star. Other stories tell the Ant people, pale-skinned, large-eyed beings who sheltered the Hopi underground during ancient cataclysms. The Zuni and Acoma have similar legends, stories of gods, giants, or even lizard-like beings who came before and sometimes live within the earth. Far-fetched? Maybe. But explorers throughout the 20th century have claimed to find giant skeletons across the American Southwest. Reports that always seem to vanish when the Smithsonian gets involved. Graves with men twice the normal height. Stone coffins that disappear from museum records. And caves sealed off for public safety. And what are the rock formations in the Grand Canyon, many within the off-limits zone? Isis Temple, Horus Peak, Tower of Set. Why do places in the American desert bear names of Egyptian and Hindu gods, the very same cultures that describe god beings descending from the sky after Great Flood? If we believe the myths, not just dismiss them, a new picture forms, one in which advanced civilizations crossed oceans long before Columbus, one in which North America was not a new world, but a very, very old one, and somewhere beneath its surface, that truth may still be waiting. The Grand Canyon isn't just a marvel of geology. For the native tribes who still live near its edges, the Hopi, the Zuni, the Navajo, it's a sacred place, a birthplace, a portal. According to Hopi tradition, the first people emerged from beneath the Grand Canyon, led by a sky being in a moving star. Other stories tell the Ant people, pale-skinned, large-eyed beings who sheltered the Hopi underground during ancient cataclysms. The Zuni and Acoma have similar legends, stories of gods, giants, or even lizard-like beings who came before and sometimes live within the earth. Far-fetched? Maybe, but explorers throughout the 20th century have claimed to find giant skeletons across the American Southwest. Reports that always seem to vanish when the Smithsonian gets involved. Graves with men twice the normal height. Stone coffins that disappear from museum records. And caves sealed off for public safety. And what are the rock formations in the Grand Canyon, many within the off-limits zone? Isis Temple, Horus Peak, Tower of Set. Why do places in the American desert bear names of Egyptian and Hindu gods, the very same cultures that describe god beings descending from the sky after the Great Flood? If we believe the myths, not just dismiss them, a new picture forms, one in which advanced civilizations crossed oceans long before Columbus, one in which North America was not a new world, but a very, very old one, and somewhere beneath its surface, that truth may still be waiting. Today, most scholars dismiss Kincaid's discovery as a fabrication, a hoax printed to sell newspapers in 1909. No evidence has surfaced, they say. No cave, no artifacts, no records. But that's not entirely true. Independent researchers like Jerry and Kathy Wills have spent years retracing Kincaid's path. Using descriptions from his notes, they believe they found his original base camp and a possible entrance high in the cliffs. But every time they get close, something happens. Unmarked plains appear. Restricted zones tighten. Paths are closed. Aerial exploration is forbidden. Access from the river? Blocked. The site is within one of the most restricted areas of the Grand Canyon, off limits to civilians. And yet, it's dotted with geological features named Isis Temple, Tower of Set Horus, R.A., Krishna Shrine, Buddha Temple. Coincidence? Some explorers have discovered cement blocks and mountaineering anchors in the middle of nowhere, signs of access points that were once used and sealed. Others claim to have seen structures and ventilation shafts high on the canyon walls, matching Kincaid's original notes. Still, no one is allowed near them. Why is this section of the Grand Canyon so heavily restricted when the rest is open to tourism? Why would the U.S. government maintain no-fly zones and patrol routes around empty cliffs? And most importantly, if this ancient city never existed, why go to such lengths to hide what isn't there? Maybe some legends are just stories, but others, buried under layers of rock, time, and silence, might be history, waiting to be unearthed. If you believe some discoveries aren't lost, just locked away, subscribe and help us keep searching. Because in the shadows of the Grand Canyon, something is still watching. When the Phoenix Gazette published a now infamous 1909 article, it described the location as a citadel, a name the Smithsonian team allegedly gave to the site. But no official maps, no geological surveys, and no federal archives recognize such a place. No citadel exists on any documented registry of the canyon. And yet, explorers still look. Modern satellite imagery shows unusual formations in the very region described by Kincaid. Heat anomalies, geometric shadow patterns, even possible artificial cuts in the canyon wall, dismissed as pareidolia, a trick of the light. But the pattern repeats itself. Reports of mysterious helicopters, federal surveillance aircraft in no-fly zones, unmarked steel doors in cliff faces, locals silenced, hikers warned, explorers fined. All of it points to one question. If the citadel truly never existed, why does someone work so hard to make sure no one ever finds it? In archaeology, absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. Sometimes, it's the result of someone making sure you never see it in the first place. The Hopi have waited for millennia. Their myths tell the messenger who will be sent from their ancestral lands into the world, seeking a blessing, a sign of peace from the gods. That messenger, they say, has never returned, and still at sunset, Hopi elders climb to rooftops and gaze toward the canyon, waiting. Kincaid vanished after his last correspondence. So did Professor Jordan. So did any official record of their work. All that remains are secondhand articles, denials, and a few surviving descriptions. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the citadel was never meant to be found. Maybe it was found and erased. The question isn't whether the underground city was real. The question is, why was it silent so completely? And what truth is still echoing inside that forbidden canyon? If you believe some doors were meant to stay closed, but others are sealed out of fear, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, and keep your eyes on the cliffs, because someone else is already watching them.